Good afternoon. My name is Jenny Lesser, and I'm the Business Development Manager here at United Training. Welcome to today's webinar, Working from Home 2.0, Process and Productivity Enhancement, presented by Eric Bloom. Eric is the Executive Director of the IT Management and Leadership Institute. We are using the GoToWebinar platform for today's session, and we will share a copy of this recording with you. We do encourage participation, so please use that questions panel in your GoToWebinar dashboard. United Training is excited to present this webinar today, so I will now hand it over to you, Eric.
Thank you, Jen. Greatly appreciate it, and welcome to all. As you know, today's webinar is on working from home 2.0, process and productivity enhancements. As for me, my name is Eric Bloom. I'm very proud to say that I've been associated with United Training for many, many years now. But my role specifically is I am the Executive Director of the IT Management and Leadership Institute. And you'll hear a drop more about it at the end. But anyway, enough about me. Now let's get directly into the material at hand. Is that when you look at the hybrid environments that are available, if you're specifically thinking about productivity and process enhancement going forward, we have to begin by thinking about, all right, what are the challenges, and then go to work around them. In fact, many of these challenges, not all, but we'll be directly speaking of over the next 30 minutes. But first of all is office and home task coordination. The idea that, if you have people in multiple places, if they've started with 3 people working on a project at the office, how do you then make sure that the people that are working at home connect in with them properly and really are part of the process? The next is over-the-shoulder collaboration. What that is I'm sitting at my desk banging away on software or whatever else that I'm doing. One of the people that I work with, one of my colleagues, walks by, looks over my shoulder, says, "Hey, Eric, I don't think it's going to work that way. Why don't we do it this way instead?" Those are really lost if one person's physically in the office and one is at home, or certainly if both are at home. So it's these kind of things. Now, none of these are surmountable. But the reason that I'm bringing them up is because as you see these, you want to be thinking about workarounds that will enhance, that you can use in your shop that will enhance your productivity and process. The next is defining effective hybrid processes. So if you think of where we were originally, and by, I'm going to say the old days, January 2019, is that all the processes were tightly tuned to work inside the office. But then what happened is everybody's home, so what did? You retune them to work as best they could in a virtual environment with everyone in their homes. Well, guess what? Is that now say some of the people are moving back from a hybrid. If you're staying at home, great. If you're moving everybody back into the office, you have to sort of go back to old processes and habits. But if you're going to be having a hybrid type environment, then what's going to happen is you may find that you may want to stay with the virtual type, or there are certain tasks, and we'll be talking about this more as we get into it, that need to be finely tuned for one, not for one or the other, namely home or office, but a combination of the two. But also is that you have to have uniform tools. If I'm working in the office 2 days a week and home 3 days a week, for example, I really need to have the same tool set available to me, or I'll be spinning my wheels, or namely be more or less productive in one place or the others. And then certainly which was an issue on the virtual side, is how do you celebrate group success? And that's group success for everyone, regardless of their physical location. So as we go and we step in to start talking about processes, let's begin by talking about tasks. And the strategy for the different types of tasks that you'll be given to people. Now, sort of from a concept perspective, different tasks or different types of tasks have different work implications, needs, and measurements. Yeah, no mystery there. Probably read that and go, yeah, of course they do. But the thing is when we tie to the next part here, while it has always been true in the physical workspace, working in a hybrid workplace environment, requires a higher level of logistics. Why? Because not everybody is in the same place. Planning, because you have to figure out what you have to have where. Deliberate action, because you're not going to just see that there's an issue walking down the hallway. You're going to have to think about it. So all of these things are required in order for you to really develop effective processes in this new hybrid world, which most people, one way or another, will be dealing with. But again, back to tasks now. Let's look at tasks from two perspectives. The first perspective is task complexity. That's my my horizontal axis. Now, by complexity, I don't mean, like that the job is easy or hard, or is complicated or not complicated. What I mean is easy or hard or complicated or not complicated for the person performing the task. For example, my daughter is a genetic counselor. There are things that for her are just, oh yes, have to do another one of these, like easy, which me in a million years I would never be able to do. Someone, for example, with help desk, someone who does help desk all the time, really easy for them, low complexity, low difficulty. But for someone who knows nothing about computers, truly painful. So as a result, look at the bottom line here of task complexity is related to the person who's doing it, complex or non-complex to them. Vertically is required interaction. That's for everybody. What that one is that's the level of interaction that you need with either customers or your internal colleagues in order to perform the task. So of these four, obviously in this slide, we're talking about processing. Basically, that's low complexity and low complexity and low interaction, namely interpersonal interaction with others. So the hybrid implications of this are you have to have physical materials in two locations. For example, if it's key punch people, well, how are we going to have key punch? You have something to look at in order to key punch. So you have two choices. If they're all in the office, you bring in the mail, you drop it on somebody's desk and you distribute it. If it's all at home, then maybe you'll distribute to home. But in a virtual world, probably what you'll need to do is put a whole scanning process in the middle and then distribute task by task, just so that everybody can get to what they need. Now, if they're physically delivering stuff, then obviously physical stuff has to go to the home, but then you'll also need shredders, at each physical location. So just none of this is undoable. It's just more stuff that you need to think about. But also, excuse me, there's the potential for needed benchmarks for home and work. If the work or the connectivity or the tools are a little different, then how do you judge someone doing it in the office with high-speed internet when someone doing it at home with a slower speed internet, if they're both working hard? So, you have to be able to consider those things when figuring out how much, what's the possible throughput in people's day. The needs, as you might expect, are ongoing workflow, regardless of the physical location, and equivalent office, home, online tools, and connectivity. So what's interesting is that one of the things that you may want to do is that if people could come back to the office, if they're going to be working at home, say they can work at home, but only if they get a certain speed of internet, that speed, of course, being associated with the type of work they're doing. But we'll talk more about that, stuff like that a little bit later. The next type is knowledge workers. Knowledge workers are basically these are people that, many of us certainly in jobs like these do knowledge work, even if we're in a management role. It could be sitting down for 3 hours to program a new subroutine or process. It could be, from a manager's perspective, sitting down for 2 or 3 hours and figuring out what next year's budget is going to be. But basically, it's that heads down, knowledge work type of activity. Now, for that, people need 2 to 3 hour blocks of time in order to get that done. Think about it, from your perspective. Is that what you'll find is there's really 5 steps to the knowledge work sort of time block process. The first is nesting. That's saying, gee, where are those 3 emails that I need? And all right, here are my notes from the meeting and what else is around. The second one is engagement. That's when you start working on it. The third is when you're in flow or the zone or whatever you want to call it. When you're in super high productivity and you know exactly where everything is or how you're going to do it, and you're just sort of trying to get it in there. It's almost timeless. You're totally in the moment. And then what will happen is that there's the wind down. It could be you're almost done with the task. You have a 12 o'clock meeting, you're hungry, nature calls, whatever it might be. And then there's disengagement when you go to the next task. But in any event, you never want to interrupt anyone exactly in the middle. So what you need to do is you need to make sure that your knowledge workers have chunks of time to get things done. There we go. My mouse got stuck. Sorry about that. But anyway, so the needs of this are, again, you're going to see equivalency as a standard theme through this if you have people working in multiple environments. But equivalent tools, tools and data that people can get to. Collaboration. If you're still working in a knowledge worker project, you'll have to talk to this person and that person, get access to your boss, and so on. So all that has to be there, whether you're in office or at home. and just regular meetings you should be having, not only with your manager, but with those who work for you, with their manager, which is you, to be able to make sure that communication flows. Because again, the big fear is this bifurcated process. We have people at work who are doing everything, and the people at home are just sort of, out and about. The next is informational, where you have equal access to really the verbal announced information. Like you're walking down the hall and go, hey, everybody, did you hear this? And it applies to your specific tasks you'll be doing today by doing Y. All right, so it's those kind of things that you hear about in the hallway, that you overhear, that can help you when you're physically in the office. Make sure you're honed in on exactly what to do. You don't get that at home. So the question is if you're managing a team that needs to get this type of information, what is the conduit to get it to them? Might be staff meetings, might be Slack. Maybe when you're sharing things with everyone, you make the mental note. If you're going to tell it to whoever's there, you'll put it in Slack, or just put it in Slack. And when you walk around the office, hey, everybody, yeah, remember to take a look at Slack. That's there, presuming that the people working at home will be able to, will be doing that on their own as a regular part of their basis. But also seamless connectivity between work and home. If I'm working on a laptop at home, I should be able to pick that up, bring it to the office, plug it in somewhere, and poof, I'm on my way. That might require virtual networks if you're doing hoteling or something along that line, where I'm not in the office that often, so that when I come in, you're going to tell me sort of where to plunk down and do my work. Then I got to have some type of connectivity there, whether it's wireless or standardized PC laptops with docking stations. Again, none of this is undoable, but it's just things you need to think about. The needs, again, there's that equivalent word again. From home or work, whether that's me in location Monday and Tuesday versus Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, or people permanently working either in office or home, but equivalencies in tool sets, communication in this case to other people, and when you're on and when you're off. In other words, is that I won't mention who it is, even though it would be a great compliment to Dell if I did. Whoops. But anyway, what Dell does with their and I don't know this internally. I have Dell hardware, and I called them up. And anyways, and I said, where are you? Just sort of asking the question. And they were with someone working from home. And this was long before COVID came up. And I said, well, how do they know if you're working or not? And what they do is part of their tech support, what they call home shoring process. So they did then, again, I've heard all of this from the outside. So I'm just trying to compliment the company. If anyone's familiar with them and knows different, let me know. But anyway, what the tech said to me was, yeah, what they do is when they sit down at their desk, they hit a button kind of thing, says they're in. It starts giving them workflow. If they go out because it's lunchtime, they have to walk the dog or whatever else, they turn it off. And they're paid based on how long things are turned on, and workflow goes to them. So anyway, these are the kind of technologies you're going to need to work with. If people are in the office, they probably still have the turn on and turn off, but they're paid basically for the day as opposed to otherwise. And then with collaboration, as you might expect, collaboration is sort of a combination of, they need time to do things, but they also need a higher level of interactivity. For example, if they're working on an agile team where, they're going to have scrum meetings every morning, they're going to be talking to each other throughout the day, et cetera. So, because it does have some quiet time related to it, it's nice to have. Being at home might be a big advantage to them in that regard. But on the other hand, is that what they're missing there, if they're at home, is there's reduced hallway discussions, which we actually have a slide on we're going to talk about later, that, how can you do that joint discovery and brainstorming? It's just more difficult to do. You have 5 people at the office, 5 people around in other locations. What do you do regarding your meetings so that everyone can truly have a voice on the brainstorming type activities? Whoops, there we go. And the equivalents are really, again, a combination of the knowledge worker stuff and the informational stuff, because people are continually having to collaborate. So you need equivalent data, access to equivalent data, to people, to tools, being able to collaborate, and ongoing standard meetings between people. So this is generally related to how tasks work, but the plot thickens. Let's get now a little bit more creative. Let's think a little bit more outside the box. Because you're probably looking at these and say, yeah, I got to pay attention to that. Gee, I got to pay attention to that one. Ooh, I didn't think of that one. But now what I'm hearing from companies that are really starting, they're embracing sort of this, they're referring to it as this new work world, where people are in multiple locations, some at home, some maybe at other offices and clusters, which we've always had. And then like a core group maybe in the office that you can never again call a core group because the whole group is core, regardless of their physical location. I'm being a little tongue in cheek as I said it, but that is how it needs to be viewed. But anyway, here are just some out of the box ideas for you regarding, again, productivity and setting up process. One is delegating tasks based on the person's physical location. Because there are some tasks just by their nature are easier to do physically in the office, or equally as easy to do, or maybe easier to do if you don't need to be interrupted, things along that line, to be done at home. So if half your staff is physically on location and half isn't, is actually delegate tasks based on where they physically are and what makes the most sense. For example, you have someone that when they're in the office, they're really high productivity. When they're home, it's sort of low productivity, and you wonder why. And the reason is that they're doing video editing. And the problem is, even though they have the same physical laptop, in the physical location where they live, they do not have high-speed internet. So the person is spending half their day waiting for stuff to be downloaded, trying to remember on the day before what videos they need to download to their laptop, so that when they get home, they don't have to sit there for 10 minutes and watch it download. So therefore, you may want to only allocate or delegate tasks, video editing tasks to them when they're physically in the office. Or maybe if they're home all the time, maybe you give them other tasks. Maybe it's in generating the transcription for it, or other things that could be done based on sort of the physicalness of where they are doing the work. The next one, establish office-based departments and virtual-based departments. In other words, this one's really interesting. You might say everyone who's in Department A is going to work from home. Maybe it's the kind of task that doesn't have to be done in the office. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to make it physical in that way. Sort of a takeoff on this one, which I found fascinating. I was talking with an IT consulting firm. And what they're going to be doing is they've always had, they have offices in most of the major cities. I'm in just outside Boston, so I'll say Boston, New York, Atlanta, Denver, Colorado, Denver, LA, all the main places. But they do have lots of customers that they deal with in places that they don't have clients. They don't have, maybe, for example, let's say they have a big client in upstate New York, for example. They don't have an office there. It's 2 or 3 hours from anywhere to get to there. So what they've decided to do is they're going to have their standard Boston office, New York office, Chicago office, and all that, but they're also going to have a virtual office. So everyone from wherever they are in the country who really, is basically saying, hey, you know what, I don't want to come into an office, or if they hired someone at a location now where they don't have an office, is they're actually part of a permanent virtual office, which will have partners associated with it, will draw on people as they need from other from other physical locations. And they'll work primarily with clients that don't fall into the specific physical jurisdiction of where they can have someone nearby. So it's actually a whole department, a whole physical office, like there's the Boston office, the New York office, the virtual office, and we'll have all the same amenities, best you can, the same quality of projects, the same promotional opportunities, the same training opportunities, et cetera, except their orientation is different from their physical location. Next is, and this one actually I tried to do a few years ago with a tool called Second Life, was awesome. It was an avatar-based immersion where you basically go in and you're a little avatar running around. For anyone who's not particularly familiar with that, if you ever seen Mario Brothers, it's basically you're a little Mario brother running around in here, and you can talk to other people, etc. You really do after a while get to notice, to recognize people's avatars. You'll have conversations. You'll sort of forget that you're virtual. But anyway, with that is you can use it for both work and play. Is that from a work perspective, you could use it for meetings, where then people could walk around, and you could actually have those cooler types, cooler or coffee room type discussions. When I'm talking about avatars and I say cooler, you may not think water. You might think, whoa, this is cool. It could be both, but nevertheless, I meant like the coffee room one. But that way people can have that ability to sort of walk around, get to know each other a little bit. And basically, whenever you went in, you would always be with the same avatar. So I would create an avatar for me that has, gray hair, I don't know, maybe a blue shirt, glasses, whatnot. So that when I went in there, everyone said, oh, there's Eric, as opposed to, oh, I think that's the avatar representing Eric. You sort of forget that after a And then lastly is to create what I call a virtual office kit. So if someone is going to be working 3 or more days a week from home, then what you do is you have a standard kit that you give them that includes maybe 2 screens, a certain level of laptop. If they're going to be printing things, it would come with a shredder, whatever that combination of stuff is. It might be an office chair, might be a stand-up desk, but you say, hey, if you're going to work from home, you need to have, this kind of space, this kind of this kind of that, and we'll give you everything else. So what you're doing then is basically you'll ship to their house and they'll pick it up, with the screens, the desk, the chair, and make it all so that they truly have an office environment that is consistent with what they would have in the office. Probably also the docking station that they would have at home would be the same one that if they went into the office, they could connect into there, again, looking for seamless connectivity. So now let me change sort of direction with you a little bit. And now let's talk about hybrid communications to your advantage. If you think of how humans get meaning from other humans, they basically get it through one of 3 ways. They either get it from the words that are said, they get it from the tone of voice, like if you think that you're on phone, or they get it from body language. Now, the numbers on the bottom, now the research says, and everyone uses these same kind of numbers, 7% of the meaning comes from the words, 38% from the tone of voice, 55% from the body language. They go, I don't know, would they come up with 7? Couldn't it be 9? Yeah, it could be 9. But look at the order of magnitude is how I look at these numbers. So, the example of this would be, and let me say, who can I pick on? I'll pick on Jen, is that first time. Hey, Jen, great job on the project. Can't wait to see what you do next. Take 2. Jen, great job on the project. I can't wait to see what you do next. Okay. Do those feel a little different to people? Well, the truth is I used exactly the same words, word for word. The difference was the tone of my voice and my body language. So therefore, understanding this concept, what you need to think of is you're figuring out what's the best way to communicate with other people. It could be in offices down the hall or on different floors if it's virtual. It could be virtual if it's virtual. But basically, those relate to, the written word, which is email or whatnot, tone of voice, which is phone call, or video, like we're doing now, which includes body language. So that said, what you really should be doing, because we all have a default way of doing things. Someone leaves us a voicemail, we send them an email. Someone sends us an email, we send them an email. Someone sends a message to us by carrier pigeon, we return it by email, because that's our default mechanism of how we have to work. But what I'm suggesting to you is rather than use your default medium that you love, think about which medium, whether it be text message, email, phone, or video, that best fits the specific business requirement that you're trying to meet. For example, if you're going to be sending someone an email and you really hope they email you back quickly because you really want to know what they think of the idea, don't email, call them. Because if you get them on the phone for 2 minutes, it'll save you from writing half an hour's worth of email, first of all, to send to them. But second of all, if you're on the phone with them, if you're on video with them, you get immediate feedback. So schedule a short 10-minute meeting with them or just give them a call, hoping that they're in. So anyway, the idea is think about what is your default mechanism. But now, if you're in a hybrid world, it's not only that default mechanism for if they're virtual, but also if they're in the office. In other words, is that if I'm going to give someone on my team bad news and they're in the other side of the building, maybe I shouldn't drop them an email about it. Maybe I should walk down to their office, sit in there, in their comfortable, sort of in their space, and deliver a message that they may not want to hear, as opposed to saying it to them in the cafeteria or just dropping them a text. So, think of what you want the communication mechanism to be based on, again, the not only the physicality, are you in person or is it virtual, but also the business goal, the business objective of that communication. But one thing that I said that we'd be getting back to is this, is hallway is you're missing the hallway communication. What you're missing is this: if you're working with someone who is working virtual, even if you or others are in the office or everyone's working virtual, you're missing this conversation. So anyway, Joe, yeah, do you think that that'll work? Yeah, I think that that'll go really well. Oh, I think that's Mary over there. Hey, Mary, you got a sec? Yeah, hey, I'm glad you walked by. Joe and I are working on this thing. We'd love to get your input in it if you have a sec. Only 2 minutes is all we need. I appreciate it. All right, what you miss in a virtual world or hybrid, if you're home and everyone else is in the office or vice versa, is those type conversations, those type situations, I should say. So try to make them happen. So how do you facilitate those if everyone's not together? Well, first is call someone to inform about a conversation. Yes, Joe and I are on the phone saying, oh yeah, hey Joe, blah, 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 blah. Hey, you know what, it'd be really good for Mary to know this. Let me see if I can conference her in. Now, if she answers, she does, great. If she doesn't, leave her a voicemail. Is that, so, you know, that's a great way just by conferencing people in one-on-one together to add them into that process. The next is afterwards, send an FYI email or give them a quick phone call, something along that line. Because again, what you're trying to do is you're trying to mimic how it would happen if you were in the office. And then just one more tip on that is, you particularly if you're a little bit introverted, is you, for those may have seen this one, if you were on the last one of these 3 videos that I'm doing with you guys, is that if you're a little introverted and you tend not to set up meetings, or someone on your team or a customer or a stakeholder is a little bit introverted, glad to talk to you, but it's not their natural inclination to pick up the phone or give you a call. Set up standard emails with these people, standard one-on-one meetings with these folks, just to make sure that you're all caught up. That's something we certainly had to do in a virtual world, but the worst case is 5 of you are in the office and say, I'm working virtual. Why? Because you hired me and I'm at distance and you knew that I'd always be working virtual. So what happens is you sort of forget I work for the team because it's out of sight, out of mind. You have a hybrid environment, but you just keep forgetting that it's actually hybrid. So anyway, these are tips that you should be thinking of, is think of all of the processes that you're moving now back as you hopefully, post, God willing, post-COVID, when we're either in a hybrid, you bring everybody back into the office, you're going to have to readjust back. Or if you're staying virtual, just really make sure to finely tune beyond what you've done so far, your processes to make them as efficient as possible. And I'd like to leave you now with one last thought. And what that is when you see great techniques used on video or conferences or phone calls or webinars, like I don't know if you've noticed, but I tend to talk with my hands. So as a result, the way I do my camera is I'm not just a talking head, from here to here. What I do is I set the camera differently so you can see my hands while I'm talking. Because if I didn't, I'm still moving my hands, but it provides no value in this video right now because you can't see them. So if you like that idea, then you start doing it. If you hate that idea, then make sure you don't do it. But it's everything along that, whatever those meetings happen to be, whatever those interactions happen to be. Your boss runs an awesome meeting. After the meeting, think to yourself, gee, how did that work? So what I'm suggesting to you is don't just be a participant, also be an observer. What things do you love? What things do you not love about the particular situation, about the particular techniques that other people have used, and use them to enhance them into your own craft. So from here, what I'd like to say is, as always, is that if you want to find more about IT profession and prioritization and such in 2021, there's a great document that you can download, download free, I should say, an ebook called The Trends and Insights for IT Pros. It's obviously provided to you at no cost from United Training, wanting to enhance the quality of our profession. And just what I'd like to mention to you also, and then I'll turn it back over, is that the next webinar, the third of the 3 that I'm doing with United, is called the Work from Office Future IT Workplace, which is on June 11th. And also what I'd like to say is that mentioned that I'm from the IT Management and Leadership Institute. We are the governing body for 2 certifications in IT management, and obviously our classes for it are offered through United Training, and I'm proud to say that they have been for a very long time, 7 or 8 years now. It's wonderful. The first is the ITMLP, and the second is the ITMLE. The ITMLP, there we go, contains these 9 topics. It's a 3-day boot camp, followed by an exam if you'd like to become certified. It's all virtual, by the way. We've been doing it virtual for 6 or 7 years. So it's not like we're doing this new, it's tuned to a virtual environment. This is again for senior individual contributors, for people to up to about 3 years of IT management experience. Then we have the ITMLE, or Management Leadership Executive. That's for IT managers who are a little more experienced, a little more seasoned, and I'd say up to director level, or manager of managers kind of thing. Could be a VP or a director or senior manager title or whatnot, but people who are basically looking for more senior type topics. Or regardless of your job level or type, if there's one set of these slides that, these topics that best fits what you want to learn, we would be glad to have you. So from here, what I'd like to do is there we go, basically just open it up to questions, say thank you very much for being with us. You want to contact me directly, you have any follow-up questions on this or whatnot. As you can see, I can be reached at eric.bloom@itmlinstitute.org. Any questions, and I will turn it back to our wonderfully managed engineer who's helping to run today's webinar.
Thank you so much, Eric. That was great. That was a ton of great information. I don't see any questions yet. There is a comment, though, that those were some great tips to focus on the communication strategy, and their department gets kind of stuck in the email world only. So that was a great slide.
Great, thank you. If you talk to your United Training representative, custom class could be done for your team as an expansion of this topic if needed.
Great. All right. Well, we will let you guys go. And again, we'll send a copy of this recording with you, and we'll follow up as well with that IT Trends book. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you all, and have a great weekend.